So I thought we perhaps should introduce ourselves, explain why we're recording this today for starters. So Richard, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Richard Drexler, President and CEO of Trifecta Gold. Got with me Jack Morton, our VP of Exploration. We're going to give you a summary on our Rye project, which is one of the 11 targets we picked up from Strategic Metals in the Tombstone Gold Belt in Yukon. This one's on the eastern end of the belt, not too far from where the Snowline Gold made their valley discovery. And we've got a very similar geophysical signature, and we've had a really good summer out there this year. We found a bunch of sheeted veining within recently identified geochemical anomaly. So we'll go over that info here.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a presentation that I delivered on Whitehorse in November 2024 for the Yukon Geoscience Conference, which fortunately wasn't recorded. So we're just re-recording it with Richard as my audience here today. He's actually the toughest critic of all. And I'll be pleased to go through these slides again and share a little color on why we think this project is such a significant exploration target. So before we begin, this is a technical presentation. I will be making some forward-looking statements, comparisons with certain other deposits and mines, and for geological purposes only. Okay, so as Richard said at the start of the year, Trifecta entered into agreement to earn into 11 projects across the Tombstone Gold Belt. These are all reduced intrusion-related gold exploration targets across a large geological environment known as the Selwyn Basin. And they relate to the 91 million year old Tombstone and Mayo Sweet intrusions, which are the mineralizers and the systems are low sulfide sheeted veins developed within these intrusions and in the surrounding form belts. And so across the whole portfolio, all of the projects are at varying stages of exploration advancement. The Rye, I suppose, falling somewhere in sort of some middle category. And this is a project where we actually did a small boots on the ground program last year with help from Yukon government with a YMEP grant. And so today I'm just happy to share an overview and some of the results of that work. So Rye is located in the eastern part, as Richard said, of the district in proximity to the Mac Pass project of fiery metals along the North Canal Road. We're 14 kilometers southeast of that unpaved government maintained road, and we're about 20 kilometers south of the Mac Pass camp. And Canada and the U.S. Department of Defense recently announced some joint funding to improve the condition of this road. That's something that was announced in December of 2024. And so something new since the last time I presented these slides. And here I've highlighted the mid-Cretaceous Tombstone and Mayo Sweet intrusions that are the mineralizers in the belt. And you can see that the Rye project is underneath that yellow star in the bottom right-hand side of the slide, and is flanked on either side by the ITSE and ITSE East plutons, which are Mayo Sweet and form the core of a small mountain range there called the ITSE Range, which is actually visible from the North Canal Road. If you're driving along North Canal Road and you look to the south there, you see significant Gossan, and again, you see the peaks of those mountains are those two plutons. And so the conventional thinking in this part of the Tombstone Gold Belt is that this eastern part of the belt was prospective for tungsten and tin. You can see the Mactung deposit there at the end of the road. And a better gold endowment would be found towards the west, especially in the offset portion of the Tombstone Gold Belt in Alaska. And so Snowline Gold's valley discovery just flipped that paradigm completely on its head and has stimulated a bunch more exploration activity here in this part of the Yukon. And here's the 99th percentile arsenic and silt regional geochemistry. Rye is being drained by strong arsenic anomalies, not coincidentally. There's lots of significant projects here that are drained by this geochemistry, the intrusion-related projects, other projects as well. And so back when these 11 projects in the portfolio were staked about a decade or more ago, mineral potential in this part of Yukon was fairly well understood, but it was still kind of a bit of a backwaters, and the geochemistry formed the basis for a lot of those early staking efforts. Speaking of staking, this is the history of Rye. It was first explored in the 1950s by Hudbay as part of a regional program in Selwyn Basin, and they identified polymetallic, principally tin veins on the project. And then they moved on. And actually, that exploration program ended up generating the Mac Pass discovery shortly thereafter. And then in the 1970s, Northern Empire Mines returned to those polymetallic veins, the principal target again being tin, and they drilled 3 drill holes and chip sampled across the veins. But this is unpublished work. So this is just information that we have from the public Yukon Minfog. In the 1980s, Silver Scepter Resources performed geological mapping, rock chip sampling, gridded soil sampling, and magnetometer surveying again focused on the veins that Hudbay had discovered. And then in 2009, Strategic Metals restaked the project and performed a brief work program to relocate the veins and confirm the grades, but also to identify other areas of interest, this time using more modern geochemical analysis for the full suite of elements, finally including gold. And this photo is from that 2011 program. So as I said, the project's flanked on either side by the ITSE and ITSE East Plutons. The ITSE Pluton is to the southwest, the ITSE East to the northeast. These are bi-type granodiorites of nanosweet, and they intrude into a package of Selwyn Basin stratigraphy, Road River, and Portrait Lake formation of Urn Group. And here, Road River and Urn Group are structurally juxtaposed against one another by a fault, which is mapped as a normal fault, dropping Urn Group against Road River in the floor of a deeply incised valley. So the fault, it's not very well exposed on surface. Locally, bedding dips south to southwest with a moderate dip, and the country rock's mostly shale and chert that's been very strongly hornfels. So you can see in the following slide here an image of the ITSE Pluton in the cliffy portion of the range, and then the hornfels surrounding it. The Plutons present as two donut magnetic features, two oblate magnetic lows marking the center of the intrusions, with magnetic high shoulders, and the project is straddling the two. The magnetic high shoulders, of course, being the gossinous hornfels to responsive pyrrhotite surrounding the intrusions. And onward with soil geochemistry, I'll highlight gold and arsenic. Gold values in soil are up to 725 ppb in close proximity to contact with the granodiorite. Arsenic has a similar pattern, but is a little more widely distributed, in excess of the limits of detection in many cases. Bismuth and soil values are also strongly elevated in contact with the ITSE granodiorite and tellurium as well. Bismuth values are up to 161 ppm. So the Empire and ITSE zones, they lie within the Hornfels zone outside the Pluton, and they straddle a creek that drains to the north. These cover those polymetallic vein targets I mentioned earlier, the two separate targets on either side of the creek. And prior workers focused on this area, which covers 2 to 3 meter wide, steeply dipping, well mineralized veins. Chip samples include assays of up to 4.1% tin, 3.7% lead, 2.6% zinc, 106.3 grams per ton silver over 3.7 meters, and also 2.5% tin and 131 grams per ton silver over 2.5 meters. And then the strongest golden rock values are at what we call the polar zone, which is closer to the contact of the granodiorite. And the gold values here yield up to 8.37 grams per ton gold and 1100 ppm bismuth. And these gold grades are associated with quartz veining with arsenopyrite, whereas the polymetallic veins are typified as bandit, the semi-massive pyrite, pyrrhotite, galena, sphalerite with the quartz carbonate vein. So in 2024, part of our program was to move into the ITSE intrusion and to finally evaluate the gold mineralization better as it fits to the reduced intrusion model. And the answer as to whether or not it fits is overwhelmingly yes. We did some exploration into the intrusion, and I have an image here of the sheeted quartz veins that we find, centimeter scale, really good density, and gold values in specimen samples yield up to 7.25 grams per ton. And then even in the Hornfels zone to the north, outside of the intrusion proper, we still discover sheeted quartz veins with gold values in specimen samples of up to 5.93 grams per ton and 1,500 ppm plus bismuth. So it's really, really strong correlation there between gold and bismuth. Really good vein density in these sheeted veins in the ITSE intrusion, but also in the Hornfels surrounding it. And so that's sort of the state of where Rye is right now. Next steps in 2025 is to perform another boots on the ground type program to better characterize the sheeted quartz veins and to systematically collect longer, more representative chip and channel samples across the areas with the strongest vein density. And to get this project into what we consider to be a drill ready stage, that means selecting specific drill targets. And we'll initiate drill permitting. Well, we already began initiating drill permitting now, so we're ready to move on quickly with the project. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Richard.